there, it's Allison of Dreamweaver Designs, and today on Thinking Outside the Box, I'm going to show you how I created these beautiful fantasy holo beads. So let's get started. All right, for this project, I used some liquid polymer clay, and this is Kato Clear. You can use any clear liquid polymer clay. Primo Sculpey in black, and you don't need this much. This is just to show you. I'm going to finish off the beads like the others with the Varathane Finish Gloss from the Heart Supplies. You're going to need a clay blade, something to roll your beads on, and this is just a double point knitting needle. You're going to need a little X-Acto knife, a soft brush. Doesn't have to be this brush, but you want to use a soft brush with your varnish. And of course, you're going to need my easy bead templates. And I know they're hard to see because they're clear acrylic, but you're going to need that. And for the magic, I will show you what you will need when we get to that point. So as usual, all supplies will be listed in the description below this video. So let me go ahead and get set up and I'll be back. All right, so the first thing that you want to do is condition your polymer clay. And I roll mine out to a number 5 thickness on the pasta machine. And as you can see, it's pretty thin. Because we're rolling the beads, I like to keep my clay thinner so that the bead isn't super bulky. If you're going for a bulky bead, like a big focal bead, then go ahead and change the thickness of your clay to make it thicker. I think we're going to go with the middle template, so I'll put these over here. And all you have to do is place your template onto the clay. I am working on a silicone work mat, which is really nice to do this, so the clay won't stick to your surface and you won't distort your bead once you cut it out. So what I'm doing is just lining up my clay blade to the template, pushing down and making my cut. That way I have a perfect cut every time. Because it's acrylic, it is stuck to the clay, so it won't move around, which makes it a whole lot easier on you. All right, now we're going to lightly or carefully put our blade under there just to get this up off the mat, and then carefully pull the clay off the template. And I will lay it there. How I like to clean my templates: do not use alcohol. That will be a disaster in the long run. It will crack your acrylic, as I showed in my other 2 bead videos. This is what cracked acrylic looks like. This was a really cool glass at one point, and it is still actually kind of cool, but sadly it's unusable because it's all cracked. But long-term use of alcohol, and I only had a very little bit in there, is what caused that glass to crack. So what I'm going to do is just take a baby wipe, or you can use soap and water, and just go ahead and wipe off your template, and then you can just dry it off with a paper towel and you're good to go. So we're going to place that over there. Now what we have to do is we need to prep this side of the clay. But before we do that, I'm going to show you where the magic comes in. Let me go ahead and move this stuff off to the side. And I'm going to go ahead and pull in, and I want to make sure there's a full shot of this. Whoops, going the wrong way. All right, this is a self-healing mat. In the sewing world, quilters use this when they use a sharp blade to cut their blocks of fabric. So we're going to be using it to cut this. What this is a holographic film. And this can be purchased at From the Heart Supplies. You get a 6x6 piece. You get 6 of them to a pack. I will have the supplies list, the link to this in the description below the video with all the other supplies. The thing I like about this film, though, I've used a lot of different films. This one from the Heart Supplies I like the best. It has the most color shift to it. It's a very thin film, but it doesn't tear very easily. You can crinkle it and not have it tear. And it just, I've never seen as much color shift in this type of film before. So the first thing that we're going to do is we want to tape this down to our self-healing mat because I don't want it to move around when we make our cuts. So I'm just going to put a few pieces of tape, making sure it's taut. And the tape that I'm using is painter's tape, so it will come off your film easily without tearing it or ruining it, and will come right off of the self-healing mat as well. All right, we're going to go back to our middle template, and you're going to place it down onto your film. Now, this is the part that can be dangerous. I want you to be super duper careful doing this. You can cut yourself. So you're going to be using a razor blade, or you can use, if you have an X-Acto knife that has a really sharp blade. This blade's a little old. I need to change it out. It's not quite as sharp as I would like. So I'm using a fresh razor blade. I want you to be very careful doing this. You don't want to cut yourself. So definitely do not let children do this, not even supervised. If you're going to do this project with a child, this part you need to do, and you need to be super careful. So all you're going to do is you're going to hold your template down, and I like to make my side cuts first. I'm going to go up against the template, and I'm going to cut with the razor blade. Then I'm going to do the same thing for the other side, trying not to move the template. That's another reason you want to have a fresh blade. And then I do my top, and then cut the bottom. Now, you would want to cut several of these out before you take it up off your mat, but for the purpose of this tutorial, we are only going to cut one and make one bead. Once I make one bead, you'll be able to see how all the others are done. So go ahead and pull that up. And where did she go? There it is. As you can see, the tape comes off very easily. I just stick it back down onto my mat for the next time. And go to where you cut, and a little bit of it is still hanging on, so you just go ahead and pull it. Now, save this because you can get lots more beads out of that, or whatever else you want to use it for. Sometimes you'll have like a little piece that got a phone call. So what you do is you just cut that little shard off. And you're all set with a perfectly cut piece for our bead. I'm gonna go for a minute. I got a phone call from the hubby and he needs me to do something, so I'll be right back. All right, now we need to prep our clay, and so that we can make our film, our holographic film, stick. So what we need to do is put just a little bit of liquid clay onto our piece. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and you're just using a very little bit. So I'll just put some out on my finger and go ahead and get the whole piece, including the edges, because you really want to make sure that this adheres. And you don't want to put it on too thick, because then your film will slide around. So you want to do just a very thin layer. Sometimes if I have it a little too thick in one place, I'll wipe my finger off with a baby wipe and then get up the excess. All right, now I've gotten all the edges, so I'm just going to run my finger along the edges. And it is ready to put this on. Now, what I like to do, you could put this on just like this, and I'll show you what that will produce in the end. Here is a bead that I put straight on. And I like that look, but I don't like it as well as the other beads. So what we're gonna do is we're going to crinkle this. And you simply take it and just mush it up. So we're putting little folds in, and what those little folds will do is reflect even more color. So then you carefully open it back up. And I like to crinkle twice. So I'm going to crinkle it one more time. And open it back up. So now your piece has like almost like little facets throughout it. And it just picks up a whole lot more color. What I also like to do is smooth the film out before I put it on. I want to make sure all my edges are not turned down. It looks like this one is. And just smooth it out. So you still have your crinkles, but it'll lay flatter also. And that edge just wants to give me a problem. It's kind of curled up. All right, now we are going to place this down on the clay. And you're going to start at the top. And to keep air out, you're just going to push and smooth while you put it down. And you can, if you need to reposition it, you can move it a little bit by sliding it. I'm going to slide a little bit up. And I'm just going to burnish it lightly onto the clay to make sure all of it has adhered with the liquid clay. All right, now you're going to pick it up, and I'm just going to wipe this off because I don't want to get the liquid clay onto my piece, onto this part of it. And we are going to put a thin layer on the back also, so that when we roll the bead, it's going to stick to that film. And on the back, I'm not as concerned about getting to the edges, and I'm just going to use a very little bit. And you don't want to, you want to stop it like right here. You don't want to get all the way to the top, because that part is going to be on your, whatever you're rolling it up with, and you don't want that liquid clay to make it adhere to that. So I'm just going to, you don't have to be as perfect with this. I'm basically just making sure it's at least down the middle. and wipe my finger off because I don't want the front to get that. If you find that you've distorted a little bit up there, that's fine. You can just cut that off and make it even again. Now we're going to do the rolling part. And I'm going to bring this closer up to the camera to show you how I do this. You're going to go ahead and put it on your needle. And you are going to just start rolling. And as you roll, this film is moving a little bit, so it's going to give you those black edges. This finger here that's touching underneath, you don't want to touch there. I mean, we can clean it off once we roll this up. But as you can see, as I roll, I'm just using a little bit of pressure and making sure that the foil, not the foil, the film is lining up so that your edges, your black edges, are even on both sides. Now, you are going to have some black left over at the bottom. You can leave that if you want, or you can cut it. And I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. And go ahead and finish rolling. And if you still have more black there than you would like, you can go ahead and use your X-Acto knife to cut that. And that's what I'm gonna do. Let me get that cleaned up. I do not want the liquid clay getting on there, because all it will do, it'll just kind of dull your finish. All right, so I'm just gonna take my X-Acto knife and not a lot of pressure, just cutting off that very edge, the very end of it. Now, if you do get some liquid clay onto the film, you can wipe that off with a baby wipe. But as you can see, it has black edges all the way around. And the last step is to take your corners and just kind of push them down just to give the bead a more finished look. You are going to make a bunch of these so that we don't waste energy, and go ahead and put them on your bead rack. And you are going to bake this in the oven at 275 degrees for 1 hour. And just go ahead and make more, fill up your whole rack. If you have another rack, that's awesome. You can put a bunch on. You can also fit 2 onto your whatever you're using to put the bead on. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to bake at 275 for 1 hour, and I'll be back. All right, our bead is out of the oven, and I'm going to show you how to get it off of your needle easily. You are going to take a plier and just hold it. Grab the needle with your hand, or grab the bead with your hand, turn, and then just pull it straight off of the needle. It's just that easy. Now, the very last step is we are going to varnish the bead. And to do that, I like to put it on the end of a chopstick. And I put 2 coats on, getting inside here with the first coat. Let that dry in between coats about 15 minutes. Add another coat. Let that dry about 15 minutes. Then I pull the bead off, flip it around, and do the very same thing with this side. Doing the first coat, or the third coat, will be a little bit on the inside along with the bead. And then the fourth and final coat, just the bead. And then I would let that dry for about, you know, a couple hours to make sure all those layers are dried. So I'm going to show you how I do the varnishing. And the first thing you want to do is stir your varathane. Do not shake it. And I've already stirred this. And you want to use a soft brush for this process. The softer the brush, it's not going to leave any kind of brush strokes behind. So just get a little bit on your brush and go ahead and paint it on there. And you want to cover the whole bead. And a very little bit goes a long way. And making sure, I like to get in the top part just a little bit, just so that's shiny. Sometimes you will see the inside of edge of the bead there, so I like to just finish that off also. So I'm just going over it, making sure that there are no pools of varnish, and then you go ahead and let that dry in between coats. I will be back when I have all 4 coats on. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, that you found it helpful, and that it inspired you. And if you did, please leave a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and leave a nice comment below. Until next time, happy creating and have a wonderful day.